Hi, everyone. My name is Bert McBrayer. I'm the Director of Admissions Services and Evaluation in the Undergraduate Admissions Office, and welcome to the Roar Room. I'm here with a couple of my fantastic colleagues from the Admissions Office.
Hello, everybody. My name is Audrey, and I'm an Associate Director in the Undergraduate Admissions Office, working here at the University Park campus.
And hello, my name is Erica Kastner. I am the Transfer Credit Coordinator in the Undergraduate Admissions Office, also working here at University Park.
And you're also
a parent of a current student.
So you bring a nice perspective to this conversation, Erica.
Yes,
You
I hope to. Yes, yes, for sure.
It's nice that you can speak directly to some of the questions that students and families have about admissions to college in general, but specifically to the Penn State process.
Yes.
So we're here today to talk a little bit about that exactly. What does the process look like? What does the application cycle look like? Some tips and tricks that students and families might be interested in. And I think one of the questions that we get a lot are, hey, I'm a senior in high school. I'm ready to apply for college. What's the timing of things? And we were just talking about this kind of before we started recording. And Erica, you were making some good points about what that timing looks like. And so maybe you want to expand a little bit on some of the feedback you've gotten and given to other families.
So the application opens August 1st, and if you apply August 1st, you are going to wait until we start releasing decisions. So I always want to make sure that families know, there's nothing wrong. They didn't do anything wrong with the process. They just decided to apply early. And that's, good to know. That way you can move on, apply to other places, do whatever you need to do while you wait for us to release our decisions. But it can be nerve-wracking to sit and wait, so it's good to understand, that is the process, and you didn't do anything wrong. You just are part of the process, and you'll get a decision when we start releasing them.
Yeah. November 1st is our early action deadline, so there is that gap in time between when students just really want to get that submitted and have it behind them. I would say on the flip side as well, I would probably not recommend waiting until the very last day.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Submit that
Don't wait until October 31st.
There's definitely a sweet spot there.
Right. So I would say that's a little stressful for us, but also be able to alleviate the stress on the student and the families as well, because I can't tell you how many frantic calls and emails that we get, right at that early action deadline where, students have just applied and maybe there was some, electrical glitch or their internet went out right at midnight, right before the deadline. And so finding that sweet spot between the August 1st and November 1st early action deadline. And just to kind of expand upon that early action, as long as students are submitting their complete application by November 1st, that means that we will guarantee them a decision by December 24th, so about the time that Penn State breaks over winter for a couple of weeks. So students aren't locked into anything necessarily. That is early decision, so that's a nice distinction that we like to make, that other institutions have early decision, but Penn State is an early action institution. So as long as students get all of their things to us by a certain time, then we'll get them a decision by a certain time.
And I think that's a good point, Audrey. The early action notion is that's a student raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm super interested in Penn State, right? You don't have to complete your application by November 1st. We continue to review applications that are submitted all year long. But if you are interested in the University Park campus, the largest campus in the university system, as your first choice campus, then early action makes sense for you. That's where you're going to be. Your application is going to be optimized for the your first choice. That being said, we do have 12 other undergraduate campuses around the state of Pennsylvania, and so let's talk a little bit about as that early action deadline might be looming in someone's mind. Well, what if I'm interested in applying directly to one of our other campuses, and what does that application process look like for students who are applying, say, for the Bert campus up in Erie, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think that's one positive with Penn State as far as, we're able to offer a lot to students, which might seem overwhelming with all the campuses, all of the majors, but the good thing is that it is in one spot. It is one application where the students can apply for whatever campus that they're interested in, whatever major. We do have our own homegrown application available on our website, but we're also on the Common App. So if students are applying to multiple schools that are also using the Common App, that makes sense. But again, no matter what major, no matter what campus, they're all available. You're just going to be selecting whatever campus works for you. Wherever you want to start, wherever you want to finish, those might be different campuses, because we do have that flexibility for students to be able to switch around campuses and a built-in structure for that, but also whatever major that you're interested in, you're able to select that on that same application. So there's that ease.
And I always like to suggest too, doing your research on the campuses before you even apply. There might be a campus that's a better fit for you. You might have heard of University Park or State College, but there might be a campus that it fits you better as far as your major or the proximity where it is in the state. University Park's kind of in farmland, so to speak. So maybe you want to attend a campus near a city, and we have a lot of different options. So I always suggest people do the research. We have a page on our website. You can look at all the campuses. You can go tour the campuses. So that's something I always suggest to families. That way they can get a better idea of a campus that might be
even
a good
in the
fit for them.
application,
Yes.
as you're looking at what your campus selections are. It's a small description. It's not it doesn't
Right.
have
Helpful
directions
blurb.
to get to campus or whatever, but helpful information about, hey, this campus has 2,500 students versus University Park, which has more than 40,000. So there's some little facts and figures within the application to help guide students. But yes, you're absolutely right, Eric. I think doing that research about not just campuses but also majors, right? Because there's more than 275 different programs to choose from at Penn State. But just doing a little bit of that research ahead of time, which kind of goes back to your first point about, hey, you don't have to apply on August 1, right? Take some time, do that research, and figure out what it is that is the right fit for you, both in campus and an academic program and those kinds of things.
Well, there's even our online campus as well. So if doing all your
absolutely.
research and just life circumstances, if that flexibility of online instruction is more your speed or what is needed right now at that point in your life, then the World Campus might be a good fit.
Absolutely.
And that, again, also on the same application. They do have a couple more individualized deadlines, which are all available on our website. But again, that same campus flexibility, all available on the same application, which is great.
So we've talked a little bit about kind of the timeline, deadlines and those kinds of things. What about the application itself? As you guys have had conversations with students and families, or Erica, maybe from the perspective of your daughter, the other pieces of the application, what makes a completed application by that November 1 application deadline? And then kind of what are the recommendations that you've given to students and families about those things?
So you can apply two ways, through the common application, or like Audrey mentioned, we have our own application. And my advice as a parent would be to make sure that you allow your student to fill it out on their own. It's something that they can take ownership of and be able to do. Obviously, be there for support. That's what I was. But I made sure that she filled it out on her own. That way she was answering from her perspective and making sure she understood what she was filling out. So you need the application, and then you need the STARS record. And Bert, I don't remember what STARS stands for right at the present second, but it's your self-reported academic record. So you're going to take all your courses from grades 9 through 11, and then the classes you're taking in 12th grade, and report those to us, and that's how we do our evaluation. So if you decide to submit test scores, which we'll probably talk about here in a little bit, you can self-report those to us. We would ask you to confirm those later on if you decide to attend Penn State. But that's my advice, is to make sure you're allowing your student to do it on their own, because it's really important for them to understand the process and be part of the process. And now they're probably 18. So now they're an adult, so they can definitely take ownership of that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, because I think that's what we share is kind of the first step in that college process. They're going to be moving, taking classes, talking to professors. And so this is kind of phase one, that very first step to really help them. So we always encourage students to be the ones filling out their applications, submitting that STARS record, reaching out to our office if they have any questions, so they can really start practicing what it's going to feel like to be a real-life college student.
And I think that's a really good point, Audrey. In fact, once a student enrolls in college, wherever they decide to go, whether that's Penn State or some other institution, staff, faculty, advisors at colleges and universities are forbidden to talk to parents about their student, unless the student has explicitly given permission. So parents, it's up to your student to have those conversations And we start that early on in the application process at Penn State. We don't want to be communicating with parents about a student's record unless the student has told us that's okay.
Yes.
And that's not to, to stonewall
Throw
parents.
shade.
Or
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? We understand you want to be supportive, and that's fantastic. But really, this is an opportunity for the student to take the driver's seat in their life and kind of start to take personal responsibility for their future, whatever that looks like, whether that's going to college or some other thing.
Yeah.
So
And that can be difficult. You know, it can be difficult to be like, not involved. You're not getting the emails. I think that was one of the things I realized. I'm not getting the emails. I'm not getting the correspondence from the school.
Right.
So that can be difficult, but it really does benefit your student.
Yeah.
And they're able to, when they do get here, they already have done a lot of those things and are ready to kind of take on talking to the professors and going to office hours and advocating for themselves. So they've already done that
that's
as part
a
of
big
the
one. That's self-advocacy.
yeah,
is
they've already
big,
done that
yeah.
as part of the admissions process, so they're a little bit more comfortable with it already when they do get to campus. So that's a nice piece as well.
So we talked a little bit about kind of the academic components of the completing a student's application. You mentioned the STARS record, which is self-reported transcript and academic record system.
Thank you.
It's a platform we
Yes.
use. Students can upload a transcript or data enter their courses and grades. It's a great way for students to kind of take control of the application process. Erica, you mentioned test scores. We are a test optional institution here at Penn State, and we have been for several years. I think it's one of the questions that I get asked most often is, should I submit my scores, or how do I know if I've got good enough scores to submit? And what I tell students and families and school counselors, frankly, is, hey, that's really a personal decision, right? If you took the exam on a Saturday morning when you were overtired and probably hungry and nervous and all these other things, but you feel good about the scores you got, then go ahead and submit them. But like most students, don't necessarily feel super confident about the scores they got on the SAT or the ACT, so there's no pressure to submit. And in fact, over the past couple of years, we've seen a trend each year. Somewhere between 50 and 60% of our applicants don't submit scores, and 50 and 60% of students who are admitted haven't submitted scores, and 50 to 60% of students who enroll haven't submitted scores. So a majority of our applicant pool is not submitting SAT or ACT scores as part of the application process. So what I tell students is, you're not going to be at a disadvantage if you decide not to submit. And I think that's kind of the big takeaway. We're not going to be able to tell you, yes, you should submit, or no, you shouldn't. But we do have some data on our website that talks about the mid 50% ranges of students who have been admitted to Penn State and what those score ranges look like.
I think a big thing to remember too is that at Penn State, our decision is primarily academic based. And so the students, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, all of the scores, all the classes that they took, that's going to be the bulk of what we use in our evaluation, and try to see how successful a student was in that classroom and determine how might they be successful in a college classroom. And so that 3 years of work is really going to be the bulk of what we're looking at. And that test score is just one day, one exam. And so naturally we are giving that a bit less weight than that 3-year record. And we're upfront about that. And students come, we talk about that in our presentations. And so that might be another factor when you're trying to determine, is this worth submitting? Is this really going to help my application? Or can I really just rely on that 3 years of work? And that's that.
Yeah, with my daughter, she decided not to ultimately submit her test scores. She didn't feel that they represented her well as a student, and she would rather that we had considered her grades. Like you said, it was a Saturday, nervous, and didn't do as well as she had hoped. So she ultimately decided not to send in her test scores and have you guys review just her grades.
Yeah.
So, but it was a conversation, right? And you have to have all the knowledge and all the information. So hopefully we'll be able to give the listeners today that way they can hopefully make their decision.
When there's no penalty. I mean, I
Right.
think that's the thing.
Right.
We get that
Exactly.
question. And so it's completely your choice. And so like Bert and Erica have mentioned, whatever is best for you, that is your call.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So before we get off the test scores subject, one of the things that I always tell students and families when I'm giving a presentation is, at the end of the day, the three of us and the folks we work with, we're admissions officers, right? And our job at its core is to predict behavior of 17 and 18-year-old students if you're coming out of high school. So parents, you can hopefully kind of sympathize. We're trying to predict behavior of your students, right? But the best way we have, the best tool in our toolbox to make that prediction is, to Audrey's point, that high school record.
Right.
How a student performs in grades 9, 10, 11, senior year schedule, then is going to be a much better predictor. In fact, data shows it year in and year out. That is the best way to predict student performance. Scores augment that prediction, right? They can sometimes assist in that, but the one piece of evidence that we have for every student is their high school record, and that's going to be the best predictor of their potential performance at Penn State, and that's what it comes down to. But as part of the application, as you guys know, there are other elements that are collected on the application. We've got a personal statement section or college essay. You've got like an activities resume, and I think one of the things that again, students, they get worked up about their academic record. They get worked up about test scores and whether or not to submit them. The other feedback that I hear a lot is, oh, what should I do for my essay? How should I write that? And are you guys reading the college essay? Audrey, I don't know, what is it that you tell students and families as are you getting those kinds of questions?
Right,
about?
and I echo kind of what we just talked about as that 3-year academic record. That's really the bulk of what we are looking at, and that's the biggest piece of our decision. So test scores, essays, personal statements. Students can also list their activities. These are other components of the application, and so students, we recommend that they submit those, but it's not going to be the be-all, end-all of the student's application. So I think, and kind of just, out there is this myth of the college essay, and it can be a big stressor for students. So what I recommend is that take care, go ahead and think about that, maybe have a couple of drafts, but I would not stress over this and spend countless hours going over this essay and lose sleep over it. Provided it is a component, but it's not going to be the biggest piece of what we're looking at. Yeah.
And I think too that we're, of course, speaking from the Penn State perspective, right? So if you're applying to other institutions, ask that question. They may have required elements of the application that aren't required for us, like a personal statement or an essay. And the other thing I always tell students is, you're probably writing a college essay or a personal statement for all of your other applications, and you can just copy and paste that into the Penn State one. But pro tip, if you're, extolling the virtues of institution X, that's not Penn State, and you're like, oh, institution X is great, don't put that in the Penn State application, because then we're seeing that, and you're talking about how it's not a good look. Exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have seen that a few times.
Exactly. And we get a chuckle out of it, right? We're not going to deny a student based on that, but it is, something to kind of be aware of. Do that proofreading, to Audrey's point, kind of being detail oriented, but don't stress out about it too much. So, the other, as we're going through the application, thinking through the application process, and we're talking about, okay, we've got dates and deadlines, we got the core components of the application. One of the other questions that I get asked a lot is kind of about academic programs and how do I choose a major? And are there, certain majors that are more competitive than others? So, what is it, Erica, that you tell students and families as you get questions about selecting a major in the application and kind of what that means for the student?
I mean, honestly, you should choose the major that you're interested in pursuing here at Penn State. So, whether that's, computer science, my daughter's in the College of Agricultural Sciences as a plant sciences major, you should choose what you're interested in. Yes, we have majors that get more applications than others, and more colleges that get more applications than others, but we want you to come here and study what you're interested in. So that's usually what I tell families is to make sure, again, do your research, figure out what you're interested in. We have the Division of Undergraduate Studies, or DUS, for those students who are maybe have a couple interests and aren't really sure. They can explore those interests and then ultimately decide what major they're interested in. But that's usually my advice to students and families when they're trying to decide what to choose.
And there are a few of our majors that are a bit more direct, as we say, direct admit majors that have very specialized curriculum. So just inherently, there might be some fewer spaces. I'm thinking of nursing, I'm thinking of architecture, that just might have a bit more programmatic requirements and needs and order of operations. And so if students are contacting us about that, we can be very upfront about, hey, if you're interested in this program, apply to this, but realize that it might be a little tough. But there are other options. So for architecture, for example, if a student's not admitted because it is quite competitive, maybe consider a landscape architecture program or architectural engineering. There are things that are still in that zone that you might still be able to achieve the career that you're interested in. Maybe it's not starting exactly as you might have anticipated, but that's the great thing about Penn State is we have so many academic options that even if you're either not aware of them up front, or maybe you had something in mind and then it does have to change, that is definitely possible.
That's a great point too, Audrey, and kind of getting back to, Erica, your point about the students doing research. The major you choose to apply for at the university can also relate to what campuses will be available to you. So there's a couple that you called out, Audrey. Architecture, for example, is only available at the University Park campus. You can't major in architecture at any other campus. Nursing, as another example that you called out, is available at several different campuses, but wherever you go, you'd have to spend all 4 years at that campus that where you're starting and you're finishing. Every one of our campuses has 4-year degree programs, and there's a lot of different ways that students can kind of, customize, if you will, their program of study. If you're interested in majoring in business, you could start at one campus, spend 2 years there, finish at another campus for your final 2 years. Our largest business program is the Smeal College of Business, and getting back to the kind of the conversation about the competitive nature of some of our programs, Smeal is one of the more competitive academic programs to be admitted to at the University Park campus. I'm going to echo exactly what you had said, Erica. I always tell students, hey, apply for what you want first, because guess what? You might get it. Like you might be admitted, right?
Might surprise yourself.
Exactly. You might surprise yourself. Don't play games. And I think there's this perception out there in the public that, oh, well, I would just want to be admitted to this campus, University Park. So I'm just going to apply into the Division of Undergraduate Studies, or DUS, our exploratory program, because that's the easiest to get into. That's number one, not necessarily true. And number two, you're not putting forth an authentic view of yourself, right? I'm not necessarily exploratory. I want to major in business, or I want to major in engineering, or whatever it might be. So that's what you should apply for. That all being said, if you're not admissible to the major that you've chosen or the campus that you've chosen, we do have a process called reconsideration, where a student can say, hey, I didn't get what I wanted as my first choice. Could you please reconsider my application for this new thing? So you have to change some element of your application, whether that's the campus or the program, but we will do a second pass at a student's application if they're interested in looking at a different program or a different campus. We were talking about a student who can ask for a reconsideration, changing something. One of the more common reasons that students ask for reconsideration is because they applied for the Smeal College of Business and they weren't admitted. And I think it's worthy of talking a little bit about the Smeal College of Business and their new program, Smeal Direct. And so this is a new initiative that the college embarked upon. We just finished the first cycle of students being enrolled in that program. And basically the short version is, if you're interested in the Smeal College of Business, this is a guaranteed way that you can graduate with a degree from the Smeal College of Business. You must start from day one in the Smeal College of Business, and it's available at any one of our campuses. You can start in Smeal at any one of our campuses. So if a student applies for the Smeal College of Business at University Park and they're admitted to the Smeal College at the Altoona campus, accepting that offer of admission to the Altoona campus is their surefire way to graduate from Penn State with a degree in the Smeal College of Business. That student could contact us and say, oh, please reconsider my application for the Division of Undergraduate Studies, our exploratory program at University Park. You're basically then forfeiting that kind of guaranteed pathway into a Smeal College program. You might be able to change your major into a business program later on in your Penn State career, but there's no guarantee because it's a competitive process once the student is a student here. I don't know. Are these kinds of questions that you guys have seen from other students as they're considering the application and what major they might be choosing?
Yeah, I've also had a lot of students ask about the summer session. So you can choose to be considered for the summer session. So if we review your application for fall, or not able to offer you admission, and you are willing and able to come in the summer, usually starts at the beginning of July and goes till the second week of August or so, you can check yes, we will automatically review you for summer. If we're not able to admit you for fall, if we admit you to summer, that's the term that you need to come for. So a lot of families can't do summer. Maybe your student has an internship. and maybe you're just not willing to go to college in the summer or start right after you graduate. So I always tell families, if you're willing and able and you would like to consider that, great. It's not mandatory to mark yes. So if you're like, hey, I don't want to do the summer, and that's not what I'm interested in, then you can choose to mark no. All the students I've talked to, though, really enjoy the summer session. At first maybe they were like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if I want to come in the summer. But they've enjoyed it. They've made lots of friends. The campus, there's not as many students, so they're able to get acclimated to the campus, take 2 classes and kind of be ahead of everybody else, and also get to know the downtown and get to know the area itself. So every student that I talk to has really enjoyed their summer session.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Erica, because I think a lot of students don't realize just how big the University Park campus is.
Sure.
Until they're here,
Yes.
right? And that summer session affords them the opportunity to really kind of ease their way into that. I mean, it's still in the summer, we still have about 10,000 students
Yep.
here, so it's not small by any stretch, but it's not the 40 to 45,000
Right.
students that's here in the fall, right? And so as a first-year student incoming with about 1,800 other first-year students in the summer, it is that smaller kind of cohort base. You get an opportunity to get acclimated, whereas then in the fall, you're feeling like an upper class student. You feel like you know
Yes.
your way around. You know how to do your own laundry or whatever, and that might be. So yeah, I think that's a really good point about the
Well, some
summer
students
program.
even want to start in the summer.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
that is
then
their
start-
first choice.
first
rather
choice,
than
yeah,
fall.
Yeah, for sure.
So that is an option on the application. If you just are ready to get going with
Yep.
that Penn State experience and can't wait to get here, you can apply for summer. So there's a lot of flexibility with that application with fall, summer, University Park, other campuses, and students can even, like Bert had mentioned, if they are getting their decision and maybe want to be reconsidered for one other thing, they can always do that through their student portal. We can reconsider that.
Yeah. So Audrey, I know that you work a lot with students who are educated in countries outside of the United States, whether they're an international student themselves or if they're a U.S. citizen that happen to be, located in another country for their high school years. What advice would you give, or if you were talking to a student who's educated abroad about their application process? And I know we've been focusing a lot on kind of the
Right.
traditional, student who might be in the United States and attending a high school in the United States. But what kinds of questions do you get a lot for students who are coming from abroad?
Well, we get a lot of questions. We do have at Penn
For
State
sure.
a very robust international student population, which is great. We have tons of students on campus, and we're actually in the top 25 University Park campus, top 25 of all colleges and universities in the United States that are welcoming international students. And that's not even counting the international students that we have at our 12 other campuses. So a really great number of students who are coming to us from other countries. Some of them might already be here, though. They might be from another country, but taking some high school classes in the United States. And so we do field a lot of questions, get lots of applications every year. And the process is similar in a lot of ways. It is the same application. So students who are going to be attending Penn State on a visa, if they're international, they do complete the same application. So that process is the same. My Penn State is through our own homegrown application, like we've alluded to, as well as the Common App. So they can use either one. That STARS record, those test scores are going to be optional for them. Really, the only difference is that they are also asked to provide proof of English proficiency. If English is not their native language, we want to ensure that they have the appropriate skills to be able to comprehend what is happening in the classroom. And so we will ask for some type of scores in order to demonstrate their English proficiency. But otherwise, we're going to be asking for the same things, although we do recognize that instruction and education is very
Yes.
different throughout the world. And so we have a whole team of international counselors who are fantastic and who are trained to be able to evaluate a student who might have been educated in India or Saudi Arabia. And so we have that recognition of, we know that you've been educated a little bit differently, so we want to take that into account and still give you that fair shot at a great Penn State education. But that English piece is really the biggest difference for an international student. They still have that early action November 1st deadline that they can look for, and the same kind of timing as far as when they'll hear from us as well.
Great advice. Erica, I know as the
Yes.
transfer credit coordinator, you work a lot with students who are bringing credits from other institutions
Yes.
or from test scores. Could you talk a little bit about some of the processes we have around high school students who have taken AP courses in high school, or international baccalaureate courses for students who are coming potentially from abroad or domestically, and how they would get those credits added to their Penn State record once they become a Penn State student.
Sure. So I'll focus on credits done in high school first. So commonly called dual enrollment, or early college classes. So if you're taking those classes, we do have our public transfer credit tool. So I usually just tell people to Google transfer credit tool PSU. That's the easiest way to find it. You can go to that tool. You can put in the name of the college or university where you receive the dual enrollment credits, put in the name of your course. If we've evaluated that course in the past, it will show you what you would receive if you attended Penn State. So for example, if you took an English course at your local community college, and we've evaluated that in the past for another student, that might come in as English 15 here at Penn State. So potentially you wouldn't need to take that here. And that's something you would talk to your academic advisor about. So we advise students to have a list of all those courses. They accepted their offer, they're coming to Penn State, they're going to meet with their advisor, having a list of not only the dual enrollment, but any AP test you've taken, any IB, any other test. And then once you and your advisor meet, and you say, hey, I can use these credits, this is going to be good, I should send them right away, to go ahead and have the official transcript sent to us. That usually looks like going to that school's website, and there's usually some sort of service that you can use to have it sent directly to us. It needs to be sent directly to us from the where you took the courses in order to be considered official, so that way we can add it to your record. AP scores we do receive automatically from College Board once a summer. So if you do have AP scores, they will come to us, and we will add those to your record when we receive them.
I think one of the questions that we get to is, does this need to be part of my application?
Right.
Because it's becoming much more prevalent for students to take these early college courses, which is, there are a lot of advantages, so it's great. But to be able, like you said, to have that discussion at orientation in the summer before you're enrolling at Penn State. But unless those courses are going to be used to satisfy any kind of high school graduation requirements, we really don't need them. They're kind of just extra, similar to what an AP exam would be. If you're taking that course, you're getting a grade for it. That's going to be in your transcript. We want to include that. But that exam score that you get for an AP exam, for example, that's just kind of extra. So you can send us those scores at any time. Like Erica said, if you have that conversation, even if that course that you're going to get credit for at Penn State is usable towards a degree, fantastic. That's really the best case scenario. So the advisor is really going to be your best bet as far as using that information once you're here at Penn State. But yeah, the transfer credit tool has a lot of great information. And we also have on our website all the information about those AP scores, IEB, like Bert mentioned, any kind of exam where you can get credit for, even some international exams. Those are all going to be on our website as far as what score you need and what Penn State credit that you'll earn.
And I was going to say, a lot of the students that I've talked to are taking those courses their senior year anyway. So to be able to include them as part of the application, they're not even completed yet, so you wouldn't be able to do that. So no stress there. You can send them, after you talk to your advisor, and maybe your advisor says, hey, you know what? You don't need these yet. Let's wait. And you can have them sent to us your senior year. So you might take a course, and you don't need it. It doesn't need to be on your record right away. You can wait. So,
or if you change your major, right?
That too.
Where you start as a first year student, it might not be applicable.
Right.
But maybe you change your major at some point through your college career, and then suddenly, that calculus course is needed or whatever.
You go, oh wait, I did take that in high school, and then you're able to send it to us. So
you don't need to do that.
You don't need to stress about sending them right away. When we get them, we will definitely add them. But having a conversation with your advisor about how they apply to your degree plan is super important before you send those to us.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, Erica, too. I think that's a really good point that no matter what your major is at the university, you'll have an academic advisor, someone who is in the academic home where your major is, that can help walk you through what the requirements are for the major, but also help point you to other resources at the university. They're kind of your first line of defense when you're a student here at Penn State, and it's a full staff of full-time professional academic advisors is a great way for students to make a connection with someone at the university, so that they can help navigate what can sometimes be a large and complex institution.
My daughter's advisor, I know, not only helps her pick her classes, but also sends the students research opportunities, research positions that they can apply for, different events on campus. So they're a great resource. Your advisor is an awesome resource while you're here to make sure you're getting where you need to be, and also participating in any events or jobs that you would like to participate in. So they're a great resource.
Hey, let's play Mythbusters, guys.
Oh, fun.
So
I like that show.
we've all worked at the university for at least several years, if
Yes.
not more. And over the years, I'm sure that you've all heard things that is like, oh, that's just absolutely not true. So, Erica, we'll start with you. What's one thing that you've heard come out of the mouth of a prospective student or a parent or a school counselor? You're like, let me set the record straight on that. That's not really true.
Goodness, putting me on the spot here. Let's see. I would say transfer credit world. If I did an associate's degree in high school, now when I come to Penn State, I'll only have 2 more years left to complete.
That's a big one.
Unfortunately, that's not always true. It might be.
Yeah.
It very well
Depends,
might
yeah.
be. Depends on how those courses apply to your degree plan, what courses you took, what your major is. So it very well might. You might only need to be here for 2 years. But I always like to tell students, be prepared to be here longer than 2 years. You know, 'cause the courses you took might not align exactly with a degree, with a major that you are taking, and you might need to do 3 years or whatever it is. So again, the academic advisor will be able to tell you, but that's from the transfer credit perspective, definitely one that we've been hearing a lot more recently.
Sure.
Just want to make sure people realize, like, yeah, it can, but it might not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audrey, how about you?
So a couple of things come to mind. I know a couple we've already spoken about, such as, you know, if I apply that first day the application's open, that'll give me my best chance, not necessarily, or if there's easier majors, but maybe a couple we haven't talked about already are, you know, interviews that some schools offer. Penn State really doesn't, so that's just really not part of our application process. So if you're looking to dazzle us with, you know, an on-screen performance or in person, that's really not an option at Penn State. There is a component with that with our honors college, but for, you know, every just normal undergraduate major, that's not an option. And similarly, visiting Penn State might not necessarily get you a leg up. Some schools
That's what I was just thinking, yeah.
do track interest in an institution. If you visit so many times, that might play into the application. But for us, while we love to see students
Absolutely.
on campus or in our virtual programs, that is not going to be factored into the application. So we always encourage students to be able to reach out to us with any questions that they have, or come join us on campus for a tour and an information session. But that is not something that we formally track in our system to be able to give you a yay or nay as whether you're be admitted to Penn State.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I think that for me, that one of the things that I hear it less and less, but when I first started working at Penn State, I feel like there was a perception, particularly from students and families in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that Penn State was a backup school. Like, oh, it's a backup school. It's in my backyard. I'll apply there as my backup school. And you know, for the incoming class at the University Park campus here for this fall, 2026, we had more than 133,000 undergraduate applications, right? And this also speaks to some of the things we've talked about reading essays and doing interviews and things like that. We don't have capacity to do those kinds of things because we have so many applicants. But the demand for a Penn State degree has risen year over year over year for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and that really is shown in the number of students who are applying. University-wide, we received more than 165,000 undergraduate applications, which is just, I mean, when I say those numbers out loud, it's kind of crazy. But I say all of that to say that it's competitive, right? Penn State is not a backup school. It is not something that you should take for granted and decide to apply for admission, you know, come April or May of your senior year.
Right.
And it's like, well, at that point, that's the end of the cycle, right? So just kind of dispelling the myth that Penn State is this kind of, you know, last minute, last thought kind of situation. So. A couple more questions. Erica, you kind of expressed early on you've got a daughter who's a current student here at Penn State. Hopefully, in addition to students listening to the dulcet tones of our voices, we get lots of parents who are also checking out the podcast. And so what advice would you have for parents who are going through the college search process with their students right now? And what ways could they be supportive of their student as they're embarking on that process?
So I would say, like I said before, allow your student to complete the process. Be there to support them, maybe point them in the right direction, you know, but let them do it. Let them send the email. Let them ask the question. Let them make the phone call, you know, if they have questions. And just listen to them. So they might be, frustrated, and just listen. The process can be daunting a little bit. Filling out the FAFSA, that one might be where you need to be there a little bit more because there's financial information,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was in school, my dad was like, "Here's my taxes. Go do the FAFSA." It was on paper then, but just to be there and support them. But I think ultimately allowing them the freedom to make some of those decisions without you kind of hovering over. If they forget something, they forget something. It's really hard as a parent to let go like that. But again, they get the emails. They get, there's a few emails that you do get as a parent if you sign up to be an authorized payee on their bill. But other than that, you really don't get any correspondence from Penn State. So, I have heard of students that have forgotten deadlines and missed deadlines because they weren't able. But it's a good learning and it's a good lesson for them.
Yeah.
So allow your students to get those lessons.
Yeah.
I love to be organized, and it was hard as a parent, it was hard for me to do that, but luckily my daughter's done okay. So, she learned pretty quick. I got to keep track of these things, and other students will too, for sure.
I think being encouraging just in any way that you can doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the one pressing all the buttons and submitting that application, but just to be encouraging. And I think as we've talked about, there's so much to offer at Penn State, and you don't always know automatically. And so, we sometimes hear from students who may have missed this or that, and they say, well, I didn't know. There's always people here that can help. So if parents don't know the answer, that's okay. Maybe encourage your son or daughter to be on our website, to be reaching out to us to figure out the answer. Maybe it's not the parent picking up the phone, it's the student, but don't just assume things, just reach out. And we're always happy to help fill in those gaps, especially to help out the student trying to navigate all of the things.
Last question. I always end conversations with friends and colleagues the same way. At Penn State, we have the Berkey Creamery. For those who are unaware of that, it is where Ben and Jerry first got their start prior to doing the Ben & Jerry's ice cream company. And so looking at the menu of all of the Berkey Creamery flavors, Erica, what's your favorite flavor of Penn State Berkey Creamery ice cream?
Death by chocolate. I don't have to think about it.
You don't have to think. I was like, that was like a quick response on
chocolate
that
and chocolate and chocolate.
And it's like all layers of chocolate.
Super good.
Audrey, how about you?
Good. Well, that's actually the gallon that I have in my freezer right now is Death by Chocolate, but I rotate between a few. So it's that one if I really want my chocolate fix.
Yes.
But if I'm aiming for something more vanilla based, I enjoy their chocolate chip cookie dough or the Scholars Chip, which is a chocolate chip spinoff. So a lot of good options.
I also like Scholars Chip, but my favorite is Alumni Swirl.
Okay.
So shout out alumni, since we're all alumni. And that one is a vanilla base, but it's got blueberry swirl with, what is it, like toffee
like
chips or something? Like a mocha chip or something? And
it's a mystery
so
deliciousness.
good.
So good.
Producer Ashley is cheering for me right now.
I had that a few
Okay.
weeks ago. I got the cone. Sometimes I'll get the gallon to really go for it at home, but sometimes
So secondary advice, when you do come visit us here, make sure you get
Hit the
ice
creamery.
cream.
Bring a freezer bag with
That's
you because
it.
you're
Or
going to
you
want to
can
take,
somehow-
or you can get dry ice
You
there.
can-
That's
they
right.
will
That's
help you.
exactly
Absolutely.
right.
They get it.
That's pro tip right there, for sure.
Well, hey, Audrey, Erica, thank you so much
you,
for
Bert.
taking some
Yes,
time
sir.
out of your busy days to sit down and chat. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And if you have any questions, admissions@psu.edu is our email address.
Yes,
You can
please
visit the
email
website,
us.
psu.edu/admission, where a lot of the stuff that we've talked about is out there for to answer your questions. Other than that, we are.
Penn State.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.